Ladies and gents, I need you to stop for just a moment and just take this footage in. I mean, really look at it. What you're seeing right here is potentially one of the greatest games that has ever been made, and we're only a month away from it. And every time Pearl Abyss drops a trailer for Crimson Desert, I am blown away. It seems like this game continually one-ups itself, and it's not even in our hands yet. At the same time, I also see the skepticism online because this game looks too ambitious, too much, too big, too many features. We're talking about a game where you can wrestle a boss to the ground. You can pole vault over a castle wall. You can transform into a bird seamlessly and engage in this like Batman Arkham style combat with 50 enemies at once, which is what brought me to the point where I'm like, yo, I've got to play this thing. Is this truly the next generation of open world action adventure games? Or is this actually just going to be a hollow shell with pretty graphics? Because one thing that games like these have to possess is soul. And does Crimson Desert actually have a soul? You see, soul is that memory, that thing that sticks out to you about that particular game that stays with you for years. The unforgettable, I used to be an adventurer like you until I took an arrow to the knee, that soul. But even beyond just the soul of the game is the depth of the game, which is equally as important. Because there have been games I've played in the past that were good games, objectively, but just fell flat in that soul department. I'm gonna anger some Dragon Dogma fans, but let me just say, Dragon's Dogma 2, even though it had fantastic combat, it was a beautiful game, and it had a wonderful world, just lacked that soul. And had it possessed that, in my opinion, it could have been a contender for Game of the Year. Needless to say, I am looking at Crimson Desert with a level of scrutiny. Not because I want to see the game fail, but instead, I want to see it be great. Today, guys, let's dive into the dev history of this game. Let's talk about some of the mechanics that are present here and what this game is trying to pull off. So without wasting any more time, let's dive right in. Now, who is actually making Crimson Desert? This is being made by Pearl Abyss, the same maniacs behind BDO. That's right, Black Desert Online. Now, if you play BDO, you know two things. Number one, the combat is best or considered best in the MMO genre. Number two, the story exists, I guess. Most people just spam R to skip the dialogue so they can get back to grinding. It doesn't mean that the game doesn't have lore. Of course it does, but that's just kind of the MMO way. And I think that's kind of the fear that's present here. Pearl Abyss is known to make games look incredible. They've built their own proprietary engine, the Black Space engine, just to make this game possible. They're not going to be relying on Unreal 5. They built the tech from scratch to handle the destruction and the wind physics, which is all incredible. But the question is, can an MMO developer pivot to a single-player, narrative-driven, open-world action-adventure game? Some would say that is a massive jump. You can't just have grind. Here you need heart. You need that soul. You need a reason to care about the protagonist here named Cliff. Crimson Desert was originally announced back in 2019 as a prequel MMO to Black Desert. But somewhere in the development cycle, they looked at the market and said no, and they pivoted hard. Crimson Desert is a single-player, open-world action-adventure game with a fixed ending. Now, there's been a lot of confusion around this, as most of us assume this was another action RPG. Think things like Dragon's Dogma 2 or even The Witcher. However, Pearl Abyss has made it pretty clear that they want to stay away from those type of genre molds. But that doesn't mean there aren't RPG aspects within the game. Will Powers, the director of marketing at Pearl Abyss, stated that honestly, it's not my place to dictate someone else's experience. If, because it has a good amount of RPG elements in the game, they want to call it an RPG, sure. I'm just explaining why we don't call it one. Now, another quote on this is that you choose the type of character that you want to play as in terms of the progression within the systems in the game. And then through headcanon, you're having this very different experience than other players because of the scope and scale of the game. You'll be distracted by something, you'll then go on a quest line, you'll have an experience that'll be radically different than someone else, even though they're playing the same game and the same canonical storyline that you both are going through. So again, it's not been directly stated that this is an RPG, as it might not have every element that you would expect in other RPG games. But honestly, after hearing this, I'd argue and say I'm even more intrigued now. I feel like there's still going to be more than enough RPG elements within the game that'll still scratch that itch. But it's honestly no surprise to see that Crimson Desert doesn't want to just fit nicely into the molds of other games. And I'm really curious to see if their formula is going to work. Now, with all of that being said, Pearl Abyss realized that based on the route that they wanted this game to go, in order to tell the story of the Greymane mercenaries, they couldn't have 500 players bunny hopping in the background, breaking that immersion. This pivot is why the game has been delayed since 2021. They had to rip out the MMO skeleton and then build this Witcher 3 soul inside of it. Now, some would say that's risky, but I would say in this climate, this environment, I actually think this is a fantastic pivot. We've talked about here recently when it comes to just live service games in general, or hell, even just MMOs, they're a dime a dozen. Now, let me just go through some of the things that Pearl Abyss is trying to pull off. Here are just a few of the features here on paper. And yes, it does sound like a dream game. Number one, the combat. It's not just a hack and slash. You're literally going to be wrestling enemies. You could tackle a boss. You can mount them. You could stab them while they try to shake you off. This is very similar to like Dragon's Dogma. And despite my issues with Dragon's Dogma, I thought its combat was fantastic. Then the world itself. You see, the region of Pywell isn't just a static map. They promise a time of day system where NPCs have schedules. Mercenaries will live, sleep, and work. And if you go out there and you destroy a wagon in a fight, it stays destroyed. And then finally, the AI. They showed footage of enemies actually working together to surround you, not the stand in a circle, attack you one by one. Essentially something you would see from like Assassin's Creed. We're talking coordinated unit attacks. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, how the hell is this going to run on anything but a high-end PC without exploding? That's a great question, which is exactly why I got to go play it, man. And I hate to get like bogged down with technicals, but this wouldn't be the first time an ambitious game burnt us at launch. And I'm not even talking about from a gameplay perspective. Cyberpunk had so many technical issues at launch. Anthem was the same way. We're talking super ambitious games that, yes, look good in the flashy trailers, but when it comes to presenting that cohesive world, nothing breaks immersion faster than technical issues and, of course, performance drop. And we've seen that in some of the gameplay that I've observed over the years. Granted, some of these were many years ago, but yes, the footage was a bit rough. Now, of course, since then, we have been getting a ton of footage, especially leading up to the launch here, and the game looks really good. It seems to be running pretty well, most notably in the overview video in the official Life in Pywell. Now, this is one of those videos that really shows the soul, in my opinion, of Crimson Desert, and there seems to be a ton of features. For instance, it opens up by showing these full-blown base building mechanics, and your main hub is going to be right here in the Grain Main Camp in Hernan. Now, the developers are saying this starts as a humble hideout after you lose your original home, but we'll have the opportunity to evolve it into this massive HQ. And I'm not talking about just upgrading a UI node. You are physically building this place out. You can invest funds to expand the perimeter, but then you're also going to have to manage the logistics. You could set up a ranch. You could build a farm. You can literally host some dirt and plant seeds, which you're gonna need because you need to produce resources for cooking and crafting. It almost gives me like Valheim vibes mixed with Red Dead. But of course, it's not just about farming turnips. The camp is the heart of the army aspect. As you recruit Greymanes, some from the story, some who just hear about your reputation and show up, you can dispatch these guys. Yes, you can send them out to run missions for currency and materials like wood and ore. The catch is, you can also deploy them to blockade locations, essentially whittling down enemy ranks while you yourself are somewhere else in the world. It's a pretty massive feature. It implies that the world does have an active war simulation running in the background, where your NPC engagements actually affect the enemy density in other regions. Now, just stepping outside of the camp, you then have the civilization layers of Pywell. You've got full settlements with blacksmiths for forging weapons and tailors for outfits. But what really caught my eye is that there is a reputation and law system. You see, the footage shows that if you start acting like a murderous hobo, well, then the residents actually turn hostile, including the guards themselves. And the punishment can range from being forced to pay fines and you actually having to serve time in jail. Yes, they even showed off Cliff sitting right here in the cell. Now, I don't know if we can like break out or something, or if we literally have to wait out a timer. And everybody's gonna role play in their different ways, but I love that the world reacts around you depending on that play style. Now, this brings us to life skills. This one is pretty dense. It's not just press X to craft. You're gonna be fishing, you're gonna be hunting wild game, you're gonna be using those ingredients for a cooking system that buffs not just your health, but also your spirit and your stamina. There's even alchemy, which involves insects and flowers to brew combat medicines. There's different various ways to gather, there's mining, and they even showed off a knowledge system where you can find hidden towns with these unusual residents. And you can also solve mechanical puzzles that will fix broken world elements. Now, for my folks that believe fashion is truly the end game, well, it's present here. And yes, there is customization. You can change hairstyles, you can change tattoos, there's a dye system, you can brew dyes via alchemy or find them in the world to color code your gear. So when I ask, will Crimson Desert possess soul? These features definitely aid that argument. And you can see on paper that it has literally 5 different genres that are mashed into one, from base management and building to army management to immersive sim law systems to survival crafting, the character customization, all on top of its combat style. Yes, the ambition here is terrifying, but if they pull it off, itself. And all these systems actually talk to each other and don't just feel like a checklist. We're talking Game of the Year contender, and dare I say, a new standard for open world action adventure games. Now, let me just say, if it was just that alone, in my opinion, in combination with a good narrative and good gameplay, is really all I could ever ask for. But that's just the surface layer, because underneath all of this, or I guess in this case, technically above all of this, is something called the Abyss system. And this is where Crimson Desert stops trying to be Red Dead, and now it starts trying to be Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on steroids. The footage here reveals that the Abyss isn't just a dungeon. It's a metaphysical realm high above Pyro that is literally leaking into the world. You'll see these fragments that are falling from the sky, and mechanically, this is your gameplay loop for power. You find these traces of the Abyss, and they act as your fast travel points, but they also lead you into these mysterious realms. And this is where the game starts to kind of shift genres, almost giving me like Remnant 2 vibes. We're talking full-blown puzzle dungeons, with the devs explicitly mentioning ancient mechanisms, hidden ruins, and putting your wits to the test. This is essentially your shrine mechanic. You go in, you solve physics-based or logic puzzles, you fight Abyss constructs, and then you come out with artifacts. Now, these aren't just vendor trash. These artifacts are the currency for unlocking and upgrading your skills. So if you want that cracked combat movements, you have to engage with this puzzle layer. Now, interestingly, this isn't just ancient knowledge that we're gathering. It's not just magic, it's technology. From the footage we pulled from Crimson Desert's feature overview directly from PlayStation, the trailer just casually drops that the further into your journey you go, this Abyss research gives you access to, get this, a missile firing mech and literally a dragon that you can pilot high above the world. So when we say this game is ambitious, man, and yeah, it starts off in kind of the same tropes that most open world games start with. You're making stew in your camp, you're paying jail fines, and now we're suddenly piloting mechs and dogfighting on dragons. And some would say this is right up Pearl Abyss's alley, mixing high fantasy with high-tech absurdity. So, does Crimson Desert have soul? It seems like it's trying to have all of them, to be quite frank. It wants to be the best life sim, the best action-adventure game, the best open-world explorer all at once. It's ambitious to the point of insanity, which is why I have to go see it for myself. My biggest concern here with this game is on its quest to have all of these features, which are all crazy features, in one single game, that the depth falls apart, that everything here is just surface deep. Hence the statement, a mile wide but an inch deep. And that's something I've seen plague other games that have this type of scope and ambition. Crimson Desert is one, though, we have been looking at for a number of years. And here in the big 2026, we are finally going to get to play it. And I truly hope it exceeds all of our expectations. But man, I really hope this game grabs me by the balls. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.